Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today we have another video. We'll be discussing not territories, provinces 6 through 10 of Canada. I've already made a video on provinces 1 through 5 and the state they entered the Canadian Confederation, so you can visit that, take a look at it. But today we will be discussing the other 5 provinces. So, with that said, let's jump right into it. As always, I have my notebook, so let's start out with British Columbia. It's the 6th province to become part of Canada. The capital is in Victoria. I wrote victory for some reason. Victoria, which is named actually after Queen Victoria, more than likely. The largest city is in Vancouver. And as I said, entered the Canadian Confederation of Provinces on July the 20th, 1871. It's the 6th province to enter, so. Now, British Columbia has 4,648,053 as of the latest census in regards to population. Need to make that clarification, I guess. 4 million what? Anyway. It is bordered by Alaska in the northwest, Yukon and Northwest Territories to the north, Alberta to the east, Montana, Idaho, and Washington to the south, and to the west is bordering the Pacific coast. It's actual just beach coastline. Now, natives were the Haida, the Waka. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. It's just a lot of KWAKs. Again, my apologies to the natives, because I'm not sure how the name was to be pronounced, so I do apologize. We also have the New Chanoth, the Dene, and the Tlingit. We talked about the Tlingit when we did our video on American states and talked about Alaska. They were also there, so you get an idea of where the Tlingit sat. Now, the region received its name because it was called the Columbia District for the land drained by the Columbia River. and was under British control, thus British Columbia. British Columbia ensured Canada's extension from the east coast to the west coast. So we have that. Now, I forgot to look up the flags. So let's do that now. Let's turn my notes to the side so the fan doesn't keep blowing around there. British Columbia flag. Okay. The flag of British Columbia is kind of unique. On the top half is a Union Jack with a crown in the middle of the Union Jack. And the bottom half looks like blue and white wavy lines, I guess, to represent the sea. Maybe assuming too much, but that's what I'm presuming. With the sun kind of rising, or setting, if you will, in front of these wavy lines. And that is the flag of British Columbia. Now, our next territory we're going to talk about is Prince Edward Island. Its capital and the largest city is Charlottetown. Give me a moment here so I can move the page. It entered into the Canadian Confederation on July the 1st, 1873. Prince Edward Island only has 142,107 people. Of course, it's also an actual island. So, Prince Edward Island has no borders, as I said, being an island. Thus, it's not bordered by any other parts of Canada or the U.S. The natives that I found seem to be the Mi'kmaq. And the island was named after Prince Edward, Duke of Kent and Strathearn, who lived from 1767 to 1820. Prince Edward was the fourth son of George III and the father of Queen Victoria of England. So that's how Prince Edward Island got its name. Other places on the island are named after Prince Edward as well. You have Kent College. Remember, I said he's the Duke of Kent. You have Kent Street in Charlottetown. You have West Kent Elementary School. So a lot of references to him being the Duke of Kent. So it's not just the island that's named after him. There's numerous things on the island that references him. And as I've mentioned before, it is the smallest province in not only terms of population, but of land size. So, to kind of give you an idea there. Now, Prince Edward Island. Its flag. On the top, you have what appears to be a red castle type fortification with the golden lion stretched out on it. The same picture we saw on one of the previous flags of one of the provinces. I can't remember the particular province. But it's the same image of the line stretched out on the red background. But this time the red background kind of looks like a um, castle fortification because you have the little blocky looking thing. But underneath the red banner of the lion, you have a white background with a picture of just a green territory with three trees on the left, and then a larger tree in the center. And that is the flag of Prince Edward Island. So, now, this time, let's talk about the province of Saskatchewan. Its capital is in Regina, and its largest city is in Saskatoon. I used to call it Regina because I knew people named Regina with that same spelling, and I'm like, Regina? But no, apparently it is Regina. I've heard one of the political discussions from the Canadian Parliament. I guess it's Parliament. I'm not sure. Is it a Parliament? Anyway, it was it's the premier of Saskatchewan talking, and it says Regina has yada yada yada. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's how it's pronounced. Okay, just bit of information there. It entered the Canadian Confederation on September the 1st, 1905. The population is just over 1 million, with 1,098,352 people as of the last census. Natives were the Sarsi, the Niitsitapi, the Alicia, the Cree, the Saulteaux, the Assiniboine, the Lakota, and the Sioux. Yeah, Saskatchewan kind of sits in the middle of the nation between Manitoba and Alberta. I think that's right. Ontario, Manitoba, then I believe Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia. But yeah, kind of in the center of Canada there. Um, the province is named after the Saskatchewan River, which is pronounced Kississakasawani. Sibley in the Cree language. Again, I've probably butchered that. My apologies. The southern portion of Saskatchewan and Alberta were part of the Louisiana Purchase, but were ceded back to Canada, who gave back land in North Dakota to help kind of level out the borders. And if I haven't already mentioned it, Saskatchewan entered the Canadian Confederacy at the same exact date and year as Alberta. So they both entered in 1905. Saskatchewan flag. There it is. Now, let's take a look here. I believe this one is the actual flag. Okay, so it does have an older flag, which used to be red on top, green on the bottom, with it looks like a wheat stalk on the left, and then in the upper right hand corner a crest with that stretched out line above 3 bundles of wheat. But its now current flag is green on top, yellow on the bottom. In the right hand side you have a flower, and on the upper left you have that same crest where you have the stretched out line above 3 wheat bundles. And that is the flag of Saskatchewan. So, next, let's kind of talk about its neighbor, Alberta. Its capital is in Edmonton, and its largest city is Calgary. And I always remember this because when I watched wrestling years ago, a lot of your wrestlers were from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I guess because that's where the Stu Hart dungeon was, where they trained a lot of the wrestlers. But I think there was also Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. But again, just a bit of a side note there. And like I mentioned already, it entered into the Canadian Confederation the same time as Saskatchewan, September the 1st, 1905. Now, its population is 4,067,175. And natives were the Blackfoot, the Cree, and the Chippewayan. Alberta is named after Princess Louise Caroline Alberta, the fourth daughter of Queen Victoria, and lived between 1848 and 1939. So she was alive when Alberta was named after her. Which is kind of unique. It is bordered by British Columbia to the west, Saskatchewan to the east, the U.S. state of Montana to the south, and the Northwest Territories in the north. And that's kind of where it sits. So yeah, I was kind of right. Saskatchewan in the middle. Now, let's talk about the flag of Alberta. The flag is a blue background, just a blue flag, and in the center you have a crest with the white flag and red stripe on top, and below that you have a picture of the sky, some mountains, and in front it has some fields, a stream, and then at the bottom, even further in the foreground, it looks like a field of wheat. And that is the flag of Alberta. And that'll bring us to our last province, Newfoundland and Labrador. Its capital and largest city is St. John's. It entered the Canadian Confederation on March the 31st, 1949. So still fairly recently. Newfoundland and Labrador's population is only 519,716, and the main natives that I found living there, according to the research, were the McCormick. Now, Newfoundland is bordered by only Quebec in the west and has coastline for the rest of it. while Labrador is actually just an island to the south of Newfoundland. Um, the word Newfoundland is from the Portuguese translation of Terra Nova, which means new land. Terra meaning land, and nova being new. You can see the same with Nova Scotia. Um, new being Nova, and Scotia being a reference to Scotland. That was in Latin, but this is Portuguese, which there's probably a lot of Latin heritage in the Portuguese language. One would presume. Presumption may be wrong, but meanwhile, Labrador's name comes from Portuguese navigator João Fernandes Labrador. And here's a interesting little fact. Geneticists have found indigenous Beothuk genetics from Newfoundland in modern Iceland, giving further proof that the Vikings may have indeed been there. So, there's always been suspicions that the Vikings were indeed in the Northeast. Well, this is again further proof that, hey, they may have actually traveled to the Northeast of North America. But let's talk about that flag. Newfoundland and Labrador. Okay, it appears to be a white flag with blue triangles kind of fitting together to form a arrow pointing to the right on the left side of the flag, while on the right you have a red outline triangle on the top and the bottom with a straight yellow line in the middle, giving us the Newfoundland and Labrador flag. And that is provinces 6 through 10 of Canada. As always, I'll try to have the sources in the description below the video. Let's see. Oh yeah. I about forgot it. But educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. It's always good. Always a good thing to know more. And I love and appreciate you all. And I'll see you again in the next video. But until then, later.